some people are calling what has happened in Nepal fashionably a Gen Z protest. What nonsense is this? Look at the words they use. Gen Z protest. They say 19 dead. The BBC writes 19 dead after Gen Z protests erupt. And India Yesterday media group says all about the move that sparked Gen Z revolution. Somebody says, who is Balen Shah, Gen Z protesters' favorite for Nepal Prime Minister? You see, ladies and gentlemen, this is also a deliberate strategy. Call killers, murderers, Gen Z, and try and give some kind of a moral legitimacy to it all. I call them a lynch mob. For a lynch mob they are and nothing else, ladies and gentlemen. 4 visuals which will prove to you what I'm talking about. Nepal's former Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deuba being beaten and later last minute rescued from the clutches of these people and taken away. Visual number 2, ladies and gentlemen. The wife of a former Prime Minister, Jhalanath Khanal, set ablaze, succumbs to her burns, burnt alive by the people the boring broadcasting corporation calls the Gen Z protesters. How cool is it to say that these killers and murderers are Gen Z? Visual number 3. And this is a lynch mob, nothing but a lynch mob. Nepal's finance minister, seen running on the streets, ladies and gentlemen, as people chase him, punched and kicked in the video. Ladies and gentlemen, another visual out there of a man being beaten to death by the lynch mob. This visual of Nepal's finance minister running on the street stripped of his clothes, people being killed and hammered, their skulls being broken, on the streets of Kathmandu by a murderous lynch mob. But there are some fools, some absolute fools, malicious fools, who call this, ladies and gentlemen, who say that this is a Gen Z protest. It's not. It's madness. And it should be called madness. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an anti-democracy lynch mob. We should be very careful about what has happened. Because all institutions are being set ablaze in Nepal. And we have some fools in India, some malicious fools who say that what happened in Nepal should happen in India. The parliament of Nepal, ladies and gentlemen, broken into and set on fire. And yet there are some people in India who say this should happen in India too. The Supreme Court, ladies and gentlemen, of Nepal set on fire. Political party offices all set on fire. Videos of the destruction are all going viral on social media. Private residences of the President, Prime Minister set on fire. Houses of former Prime Ministers all set on fire. And the wife, the heart-rending visual of the wife of former Nepal Prime Minister Jhalanath Khanal, who succumbed to her injuries. Hours after her house was set on fire, she was pulled out and she was burnt alive. And ladies and gentlemen, I wish Rahul Gandhi had the sense to tweet today that what happened in Nepal should never happen in India. But for some curious reason, Rahul Gandhi has not done that. Ladies and gentlemen, I find a very uncanny resemblance with what happened in Bangladesh some time back. I believe the American deep state is behind both without a shred of doubt. This is the CIA deep state playbook, which is in operation in South Asia. India is being surrounded by governments planted by the Americans all across Sri Lanka, Colombo, Pakistan, of course, less said the better, but Bangladesh as well. I want to run the visuals, ladies and gentlemen, here, comparing what has happened in both cases. In both cases, Bangladesh as well as Nepal, students have been made some kind of a face of the coup. But they're only a face. They have been staged as pawns in the hands of somebody from across the continent who is pulling the string. The visuals in Bangladesh and the visuals in Nepal are strikingly similar. The coup architects, the architects of the coup, ladies and gentlemen, Yunus in one side, and the rapper mayor of Kathmandu in the other. The architects of the coup, one Yunus, seen there in the visuals with Joe Biden, given the highest of honors by Joe Biden because he betrayed his own country. And similarly, ladies and gentlemen, there's a 35-year-old rapper. He sings rap music. I don't know if his visuals are here. Here he's the mayor of Nepal. He's the America's favorite. And he's poised to become the Prime Minister of Nepal. A man who cannot win an election in Kathmandu will become Prime Minister of Nepal. In both cases, ladies and gentlemen, these are plans of America, and they have been put in the job by America. Yunus was in America, in fact, on the day when the coup happened in Bangladesh. The Kathmandu mayor, who seems only too happy to be the Prime Minister there, is the next man, a rapper, a Zelensky-type figure. These people are often taken to America. God knows who funds them. But they apparently get a lot of funding, a lot of support. And that man on the right-hand side of your screen is the man who Donald Trump wants to be the next Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, of Nepal. All very cool, all very Gen Z, but it makes no sense. The fact of the matter is, these are American plants. The third point of comparison is the army takeover. If you see the visuals from Bangladesh and you see the visuals from Nepal, the army, obviously, which is part of the whole game, comes in to evacuate the stranded political leaders who have won elections, whether it be Oli. We may not like Oli very much here in India, but he's been an elected Prime Minister of Nepal. And Sheikh Hasina may have been close to China, but she's an elected Prime Minister of Bangladesh. In both cases, you have the chopper visuals of the choppers coming in, the army stepping in to sort of rescue and evacuate the leaders almost as if on prompt. Ladies and gentlemen, we must remember that the strategic interests of both the leaders, Sheikh Hasina and now former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, were very strong with China. Now, I have no love lost for the Chinese, ladies and gentlemen. And obviously, China was playing the game. Here are the army stepping there and helping the political leaders, the elected political leaders, flee from their own countries. But the fact of the matter is that Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli had recently attended China's highly symbolic military parade in Beijing on the 3rd of September 2025. Here are his recent visuals with Xi Jinping just a few days back. This has irritated Trump, and Trump has got Oli out. Similarly, and you might find it almost unnatural, the similarities between both cases, Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina had gone to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping and her Chinese counterpart Li Qiang in Beijing on July 10th, 2025, just 25 days before her own government was toppled. In both cases, Sheikh Hasina and KP Sharma Oli had been making significant outreaches to the Chinese. Now, Sheikh Hasina also kept her own line open with Narendra Modi, but the fact of the matter is they were not on America's side. America wanted a presence. America wants a presence. This is her meeting after Prime Minister Modi was sworn in for the third time, and the first visit of a foreign dignitary to India after Prime Minister Modi was sworn in was that of Sheikh Hasina. So, ladies and gentlemen, whenever leaders in South Asian countries have grown close to India or close to China, they become a threat to America, and America needs a pivot, and that's why they've carried out these fake Gen Z protests, which are not fake Gen Z protests. These are coups that have been carried out on American deep state CIA instructions in Nepal and Bangladesh in order to ring-fence India. The last point you must consider, and those are of times. These are very well-planned social media protests. This is a pure CIA plan. Money is put in, social media is used as a tool, the Gen Z is paid off, violence is started. Within 2 or 3 days, tremendous instability is created. The police has to be called out, then paramilitary has to be called out, then the army has to be called out. Then there is complete public violence, and because the state cannot respond with the kind of violence which is unleashed by the so-called protesters, the leaders have to flee, and there is a complete takeover. This is what Trump is doing in our region. In Bangladesh, the protests in Bangladesh turned violent on 15th of July. Sheikh Hasina was forced to resign on 5th of August, 20 days, all over. In Nepal, it took just 36 hours to topple the government. Is it possible this happened without any foreign coordination? Is it even conceivable that America is not behind this? Finally, I want to go back to India and I want to tell all the people of the country, be very careful. There have already been 4 attempts to create mobocracy in India. And here are the visuals of them. If you don't remember, after Narendra Modi got sworn in, there was a sponsored land acquisition protest in 2015, the next year. There was an attempt to bring down the government in Delhi with the first attempts at mobocracy. This is land acquisition protest 2015, ladies and gentlemen, and chaos had happened at that time. Then Shaheen Bagh. And then there was the Bharat Tere Tukde Honge slogans. The engineering of Shaheen Bagh happened in 2020, 2021. Bharat Tere Tukde Hai, these are the visuals of that, happened in 2016, 2017. And then there was the fake farmers, Greta Thunberg protest, which happened in 2021. On 4 occasions, there have been full attempts in India to try and bring down the government through mob violence. The anarchy playbook of the CIA is very real. You can fool yourself and believe, no, it's not true. All this is made up. But I'm telling you, learn to connect the dots. And therefore, when you hear a misleading headline saying Gen Z protests in Nepal, remember it is not Gen Z. It is murderous, it is violent, it is anti-democratic, and without a doubt, it is foreign sponsored.